President, please be seated. The court is now back in session. We would like to give the floor to the defense team for Nguyen Chi in order to put question to this witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. Just one brief preliminary matter. This is with request to the application I mentioned yesterday morning. That's E209. That's our Rule 87 request to put new evidence to this witness for impeachment purposes. Has that been decided?
President, the Chamber will not respond to your request because the document you sought to submit is not actually a new evidence. It was a decision regarding the process of work done before the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges. Probably the Council is mistaken in this regard. When it comes to judicial document, for example, an order to summons a witness or a person, or a rogatory letter, is not considered as an evidence and cannot be viewed as such. In order to further clarify this matter, I'd like to give the floor to Judge Lavange.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that the specifications that you gave are quite clear. In fact, what we should remember is that the decision that you're referring to is not evidence, and therefore is not subjected to the provisions of Rule 87. Rule 87 applies to evidence. However, the Chamber will decide if the questions based on the decision that you're referring to are relevant, and if they're not, well, the President will exercise his discretion to interrupt or to block any non-relevant question. But of course, you can refer to this document because it is an act of procedure.
Thank you for that clarification. Obviously, we disagree with the position put forward by the bench. We agree in the sense that none of that impeachment material is evidence. That's what we've been saying all along. It's not evidence as such. We were forced to comply with the procedures put in place by the Chamber with respect to Rule 87.4.
President, we give the floor to you to put question to this witness, and the matter has been already ruled. You are not supposed to provide any further comment. Try to seize this opportunity to make other statements.
I know I'm not supposed to, but I'm compelled to for the record. I'm just stating my objection for the record. In that case, based on your ruling, I will not be able to proceed with my cross-examination of this witness.
Judge Cartwright, you may proceed.
Perhaps you misunderstand. The court has not ruled that you may not refer to this document. You may refer to it. It has said it is not evidence. It is an order of the co-investigating judges. Therefore, you may refer to it. Is that clear? Secondly, the President will determine if you are putting questions to the witness based on this order of the co-investigating judges, if there is any relevance to in respect of your questions. Is that clear?
Quite frankly, it's not clear. It's not clear to me.
In that case, you do what you wish. You either question the witness based on this document or you do not.
My position would be that orders contain facts, and facts could be evidence. This is why it's not clear to me. In any case, I will not proceed with the cross-examination. I will turn over the floor to my client, who wishes to make a few comments about the evacuation of Phnom Penh, one of the central issues in this case. So I now cede my time to Mr. Nunchia.
President, the prosecutor, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe we've visited this issue before of the accused making comments. If Mr. Nunchia wishes to subject himself to examination on this issue, fine, but he should not use the questioning of a witness as an opportunity to get up and make comments himself. So if he wishes if counsel wishes to engage in questioning, fine. They should not use this as an opportunity to make comments on the evidence.
Oui, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, Mr. President, we have the same position as the one we had a few months ago or a few weeks ago, which is the prosecutor's position. Mr. Nunchia cannot use, as he wishes, the court time to make statements when it is here. The matter at hand is putting questions to a witness.
If I may just reply briefly, Mr. Nunchia is very much a part of his own defense. He's very much a part of his defense team. He wishes to make certain comments in response to the testimony that has been elicited. I don't see any reason why this chamber would not be interested in hearing what he has to say in furtherance of getting at the truth, if that's indeed what it is we're here to do. So Mr. Nunchia would like to make some comments, and he's more than willing to have questions put to him. And we've got plenty of time today. As I said, I'm willing to cede my time to Nunchia.
President, the prosecutor, you may proceed.
Yes, Mr. President. If Mr. Nunchia will actually subject himself to questioning on this issue, that is another matter. But in terms of scheduling, I would suggest that this should not happen in the middle of a witness's testimony. If he wishes to indicate to the court that he wants to make comments on this matter and that he will subject to questioning, we can schedule a time for that and do that when this witness's testimony is completed, and we would be happy to do that. But I think to do that in the middle of a witness's testimony seems inappropriate.
I simply wish to specify again that we completely support the prosecutor. If Mr. Nunchia wishes to answer questions, no problem. And this will be, of course, completely different. But maybe it's not the right moment. if he wishes to refer to several statements and we ask him questions on several statements, maybe then we could finish the examination of this witness and then we could hear Mr. Nguyen Chia's statement.
Your Honor, very briefly, I think logically it makes eminent sense to do it now during the testimony of the witness to which he will be replying, making comment. I don't see why we should wait until this witness has gone. It has to do with his testimony. It has to do with things he said. So that would be our position. He's here. We're all here. We have the time. We know that sometimes things get rescheduled. It's hard to get witnesses to come back. It makes sense to do it now.
President, the chamber allows him to put question to the witness through the president of the chamber. So let me say again, you can put question only through the chamber, through the witness. And whether you are willing to do so, that is your right. And Mr. Witness, you have to wait for the instruction from the bench whether you are allowed to respond to a question put to you. You listen to the question put by the accused and wait for our decision to allow you to respond, or otherwise you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's appropriate if you engage directly with my client on this issue. Thank you.
The President. Please refer to the procedure. Parties or individuals who are not counsel, they had to put question through a witness through the president of the chamber. That are the relevant provisions regarding the proceeding before us.
That's exactly what I meant, Your Honor. I think it's time for you and my clients to engage in this process now.
Nunchi, my respect to my compatriots, my respect to Mr. President. I'd like to talk about the forced evacuation of people. I'd like to make some responses through the testimony of this witness. And for the witnesses so far that have been heard in regards to the evacuation of people, Mr. Witness has provided some reasonable reasons for the evacuation of people from cities, that is to avoid the bombardment by the United States and the starvation and the internal wars. However, many of the witnesses do not know the real reasons or more reasons than that, which it does seem to show that the means of evacuation was ill intent. I'd like to make the following responses. First of all, I'd like to state that we are the war losers and we have been accused of forced evacuation of people. However, the current activities are inappropriate if compared to the evacuation conducted after the 17th April 1975. I'd like to make my statements to the poor people who have been oppressed, who have been persecuted and threatened to their lives by the rich, by the powerful, who are robbing their farmland and rice fields. The President, Mr. Nunchi, your statement is far and further from the proceeding before us. The purpose of today's proceeding is to hear the testimony of this witness before us in relation to the facts or some facts, including the administrative structure at the base and the structure of the cooperative, and in particular the security center of Cục Đuổi. The chamber will not allow you to make any statement outside the facts relevant to the knowledge of this particular witness, and who have given quite a detailed testimony so far. You will not be allowed to use this opportunity to do at your own wishes. My last question to you is the following. Do you have any relevant questions to be put to this witness? in regards to the facts outlined in the entire case 002, and in particular the relevance related to the knowledge of this witness, whom you have been listening to for 1.5 days so far. Nunchi, I'd like to talk about the evacuation of people, the President. If you do not have any questions, then you will not be allowed to speak. The President, Mr. Nuon Chea, you are not allowed to speak anymore. In making that statement, it is contradictory to the purpose of hearing the testimony of this witness.
Mr. President, the words of my client were not translated into English. Maybe it is possible to ask for a translation now. I think it's relevant that everyone who doesn't speak Khmer knows what my client said, especially as your response was translated.
The President, your client is not allowed to speak. The purpose today is to hear the testimony of this witness. You can proceed to do so during your closing statement. And if you don't have questions to this witness, please be seated. The floor will then be given to another defense team.
But again, Mr. President, I don't know what my client said. It was not translated, and I believe that for the international judges as well, it would be useful to translate his words. Now, all we know is your response to something that has been said by my client, which I did not understand. And it was spoken. I'm not asking for my client to speak again or to continue speaking. I just want to translate what has been said. I want to know what my client said.
The President, Counsel, if you cannot understand what he spoke just then, you should consult with your national counsel. The chamber will not allow the floor to be used for different purpose besides the purpose of today's proceeding or each day proceeding. When we are hearing a testimony of a particular witness, please be seated. Defense counsel, do you have questions to be put to this witness? If not, then the chamber will give the floor to another defense team.
Thank you, Mr. President. My national co-counsel has some questions for this witness. I would like to make the habitual request for my client to go downstairs and follow the remaining of the procedure from the holding cell. I have the necessary waiver. I don't see any reason why my client should stay in court, certainly if he's not allowed to speak.
The
President, Mr. Nuon Chea, is it your request to follow the proceeding through the holding cell downstairs through audiovisual means as stated by your counsel? Nuon Chea: Yes, that is correct. If I am not allowed to speak, then I would like to go to the holding cell downstairs. The President, having heard the request by the accused Nuon Chea through his defense counsel and also through his verbal request to the chamber to follow the proceedings through audiovisual means, for the proceeding this afternoon, as he waived his right to directly follow the proceeding in the courtroom, and the counsel undertakes that he will submit the letter of waiver to the chamber. For that reason, the waiver agrees to the request through the accused, through his Nuon Chea and by himself, so that he can follow the proceeding in a holding cell downstairs through audio-visual means for the rest of this afternoon proceeding, and that he waives his rights to his personal presence. The counsel for Nuon Chea needs to deliver immediately the letter of waiver to the chamber, either with a signature or a thumbprint of the accused Nuon Chea. The unit will be instructed to link the audio-visual to the holding cell downstairs for the rest of this afternoon proceeding. Security guard will be instructed to bring Mr. Nuon Chea to the holding cell downstairs so that he can follow the proceeding.
The President, counsels for Mr. Nuon Chea, do you have any questions to put to the witness? If so, you may proceed. Counsel Sonarun. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. And good afternoon, witness Yun Kim. I am Sonarun, representing Mr. Nuon Chea, and with my colleagues here representing him. Yesterday, you said to the co-prosecutor that the pagodas in your region did not exist, and that monks were disrobed. Could you tell us why monks were disrobed? They had to leave monkhood because they had no food to eat, or because of other reasons? Response. In 1976, in each pagoda, monks were disrobed. And it was confirmed by the authority that, as I indicated, during the Democratic Cambodia regime, the revolution had to be done only once and for all, because the revolution had to include the cultural revolution at the same time. This means that the religion had to be set aside when the cooperatives moved on. So I could say that religion was no longer in existence without any compelling force, because when no people or lay persons offering food to the monk could never remain in the pagodas. As I indicated, we were asked not to need to make this revolution twice, and we have to really put things all together, avoiding to do this repeatedly. As in China, there was at the beginning a revolution, and later on a cultural revolution, so 2 times, and we did not want that. Council, yesterday you said you saw the Revolutionary Flag magazine. Did you happen to know that the magazine mentioned about pagodas? Response: it was a very long time ago. Indeed, there was an instruction from the party center in the flags, the content of which I don't remember. I think there were some key policies, and pagoda was part of the matter included in the instruction and guidance by the district committee when we convened meetings. But I think it was a long time ago. I couldn't recall the details. Counsel: thank you, Mr. Witness. You stated that Mr. Nguyen Chia used to go to Sambo district to give some education sessions to people in the area. When Mr. Nguyen Chia went there to give lecture to people in the area, did he mention anything about the enemies? The enemies regarded by the CPK, enemy classified into 3 categories: the internal enemies, the American enemies, and the Vietnamese. Did he ever mention anything like this? Response: in 1973, Mr. Nguyen Chia had never been to my location. He went only to Da Commune in Crotches district, and people in the 3 districts of Crotches province attended that session. In the first session, enemy situation was discussed, and we were told that there were American enemies, the Vietnamese, and the internal enemies. And it was a routine when enemies were the subject of the discussion, then they would be classified into that category. And later on, he also advised people concerning the mutual assistance group in the cooperatives. Counsel: thank you. Mr. Witness, you said you met Nguyen Chia only on one occasion. Did you meet him again at a later date? Response. The senior leaders of the Khmer Rouge, only one of them, Mr. Nguyen Chie, was the person I met. I never met any other people other than him. Counsel. Thank you. When you met Nguyen Chie at that time, did you see him in person, engaged in discussion, or you merely attended the study session where he gave lecture? Response. When I met Nguyen Chie, we were in a seminar. He was on the stage and we were sitting in the hall at the table. There were commune chiefs from each commune in Crochet. At that time there were 3 districts: Snool, Crochet, and Sambo district. Chlong was ceded to another east side or east zone. So there were not many people attending the meeting. And we listened to him, who gave instructions. And he also asked attendees concerning the difficulties in each location. That's all. Counsel. Thank you. So you knew him through your presence in a seminar, and you had not been in contact with him in person. Is that correct? Or I can rephrase it. It means you did not talk to him. You never engaged in any conversation with him other than participating in the study sessions. Is that correct? Response. Yes, it is correct. I did not engage in any chit-chat or direct conversation with him. He asked us questions and I had to respond to his questions as an attendee in the class. Counsel. Thank you. You attended sessions in the seminar with leaders of the commune, the sessions chaired by Mr. Nguyen Chie. Could you tell the court your impression concerning Mr. Nguyen Chie's characteristic? Was he a mean person, a person who was barbaric, who intended to send people to be executed, or was he just a gentle person, a kind of person with respect? The President, Counsel, could witness please hold on, and Mr. Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Mr. President, I object that that's calling for speculation from this witness, given his prior answer that he did not have personal contact with Mr. Nguyen Chie.
Counsel Sonarun, I may wish to respond to this statement by the co-prosecutor. I'm not calling for a speculation. The witness said that he saw Nguyen Chie with his own eyes, so I think he would not make any speculation when it comes to his response to my question. The President, co-prosecutor's objection is not sustained. Witness is now instructed to respond to the question. Response. With regard to the characteristic of Mr. Nguyen Chie, he was of a good person as a leader, because in his words, he put in the instructions, he would like us as cadres to be good cadres, and that we had to engage in with the people, to know the people. That's all. Council. I have another question. Before and after you joined the revolution, had you ever witnessed the aerial bombardments by the Americans? Response. Before I joined the revolutionary movement, I had never witnessed the bombardments, but I heard of this. For example, I heard of the bombs being dropped at Dam in Ratanakiri and Chantria district in Kratches, or rather Chantria district. But on the 18th of March 1970, there was a coup d'etat, and after that I saw the bombs, the bombardments in Kratches province. In 1972, it was difficult to find any bridge in Kratches province being intact because they all were destroyed by the bombardments. Even the bridges were severely damaged. Bombs were still seen being dropped on those locations. The bridges in Sandan were all destroyed, and in my location, bombs also were dropped. There was also another fighter jet that or F-111 dropped bombs at night. I only can talk about the bombardments in my location, but I can't talk about what happened in other area, although I heard the noise from a long distance about the bombings. Counsel, according to your statement to the prosecutor, you said when the Khmer Rouge military arrived at Sambo district, the situation had already been chaotic. The people were confused because people had been arrested. People at the district level, the people who were leading the centers or the communes and sector were removed. Many had been removed all the way to the commune level. My question is, what was your knowledge of the implication or the effects of such arrests? Had people been compelled to stay in the area to await arrest, or did they do something about this? Response. In a situation when the military had to grab power in early 1978, the situation in Sambo was chaotic. the arrests were made, and mainly the people in the leadership were arrested. Ordinary people were not affected. When I mention about the leadership, I refer to the leaders of the districts and communes. In my communes, even my medic was also arrested. I did not know. I only learned that he disappeared. And I heard of people being arrested at the sector level, and people had to run to flee from the escape from the arrests. Counsel, thank you. You said that the situation was chaotic because the military came to arrest people, and you also indicated yesterday that you heard people who came to the location who addressed other people as Nyom. Can you tell the court whether these people were of Cambodian nationality or the enemies of the CPK or else? Because you already indicated that there were 3 categories of enemies: the internal, the American, and the Vietnamese enemies. Were they enemies? Response: when the military came to arrest people in the commune, district committees, and the cooperative committee, I believe that they were the military from the CPK, because they were well structured, and I did not know what happened during the arrest. I only learned at a later date through document I was given concerning the person by the names of Ni and Pan, who ended up being detained at S21. So I learned that they could have been the military of the CPK, or the army of the CPK. Counsel, on the 17th of April 1975, when the Lonol government was toppled down and that the Khmer Rouge, rather the CPK, was approaching Phnom Penh, where were you at that time? Response: on the 17th of April 1975, I was at Watanak village. I was digging canal, and I was listening to a radio, and I heard that Phnom Penh was liberated. Counsel, thank you. When you heard that Phnom Penh was liberated, what is your impression concerning the general aspect of the location you lived in, and your impression concerning the situation all across Kratches province? Were people happy? Response: normally, when the country had been in war and people had been afraid of the aerial bombardments, and having heard that the country was liberated, everyone would be pleased and joyful, and everyone did not continue their work. They had to pause for a while to enjoy the victory. Counsel: what about the people in the city of Kratches? Did they evacuate to the countryside, or they remain or stay put in the cities? Response: the people in Kratches town, so far as I know, after the cooperatives were established, most of them already left the city, except people who had work to do there. Without going to the countryside to do farming, they would not have food to eat, so they already left. Thank you. Council. On the 7th of January 1979, when the Vietnamese troops attacked and entered Phnom Penh and other provinces of Cambodia, what was your impression concerning the general situation all across the nation? Either you learned through radio broadcasts or through friends. Tell us about the situation in the country back then. Response. Before the liberation, I had been in the work site. People had been evacuated from the work site. I had to cross the river from the left side riverbank to the right riverbank of the Mekong, and I lived in a village which adjacent to my village. It was called Dong Tung village. The base people already left me, and I had at that time been with the young people, so there were only new people. The 7th of April people who had been in Sambo district, commune, they had remained with me, about 30 families. At that time, I remember witnessing the area bombardments at that location, and people asked me whether we should run for our life or not. I said no, we should stay, and after a few more bombings, and I said it's time to run. And then the next day we saw the Vietnamese troops all over the place, and we were not happy or sad. The feeling was rather mixed, because when the Vietnamese troop came, we had to be evacuated to Sambo. I asked that I be allowed to live in Watana, but I was not allowed to do so. We were evacuated time again from one place to another. But on the 6th of January, I was arrested by the Vietnamese and detained until until April 1980, when I was released. I had been detained for 5 months in Vietnam. Council. I may go back a little bit in time. When Nguyen Chi attended or went to the seminar in Sambo district, I already asked you a question concerning this. At that time, you said that Nguyen Chi asked people who attended the workshop to create small and big cooperatives. And after the session, you returned to Phnom Penh. Mr. Nguyen Chi returned to Phnom Penh, but you said that District Secretary Mr. Chet created a community instead of a cooperative. Can you tell the court what reaction was made up, what was the reaction from the people in the local community when the senior leader already instructed them to carry out a plan, but then the person in the community, in the local area, turned against such a decision? Response. Mr. Nguyen Chi had never been in Sambo district. He went to attend meetings in Da Croce province. At that time, he instructed that the mutual assistance group and lower and higher level cooperative be established. And after the workshop, Mr. Chad, who was a professor, was kept. He was not. He asked the people who attend the seminar to remain at the seminar, and he asked people not to go home yet. And then he came up with the idea that we should not listen to the instruction by Mr. Nuon Chea. We should create a community rather than the cooperatives or lower, higher level cooperatives, mutual assistance group. And when having heard that, everyone looked or turned to me. My friends Pan and Bin said, he asked me to talk something to Mr. Chad, and I was never afraid of Mr. Chad, and I talked to him that by doing so you really turn against the decision from the top. But he insisted that I listened to him. I did whatever he wanted us to do. So if I was not brave enough to disseminate information concerning this, then allowed him to do so. And indeed, the people were not happy about establishment of the community, because so far we already learned that the communal eating, communal working could not please everyone, because even when we are at home, we would not have a different choice of meals, and we do not want to be confined to only just a situation where there is no option. So as a leader in the community, I was not happy with the idea, but I tried very hard not to make people show strong reaction against this, because if the people had to do something against this idea, then they would be accused of being enemies. And I also would like to talk about the personality of Mr. Chad as well. I normally say that Mr. Chad was the person who never trusted his subordinates. There were two dams at the location, the dam left over from the Sihanouk regime and Kul Swai Dam. At the Kul Swai Dam, there was some water that can be irrigated into the paddy fields. I gave idea to him, but he took it for granted, and he said that we had to dig canal, and that the water had to be irrigated from the dam into the canal, so that the canal is flooded and the flood will also flow into the paddy fields. This was his idea, and this is how I can describe his personality, which is not good.
Question. So you saw that Mr. Chad has the opportunity to oppose the instructions from the upper echelon. The question is, at present, in regards to the implementation of the policy from the district to the commune, as far as you knew, did Mr. Chad follow the instruction from the top to the bottom? And so what I clearly knew was in regard to the establishment of the mutual assistance group and the low-level and high-level cooperatives. That was the instructions he directly gave to me. As for other instructions, I did not know whether he received it from the district committee or not, but later on he was transferred to Kratie and subsequently arrested. Question. The people living in your area under your supervision, did they clearly know the distinction between the community and the cooperative? Answer. I know that people in my commune, in my base, did not know well about the cooperative because the nature of the cooperative is communal. It means we work communally and share the benefit individually. But people there were well aware of the community. We established the community without establishment of the cooperative. So they knew well about the nature of the community. Thank you, Mr. Witness, and thank you, Mr. President. I do not have any more questions for this witness. President. Thank you, Counsel. Defense Counsel for Ieng Sari, you may proceed now. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Good afternoon, everyone in and around the courtroom. Good afternoon, Mr. Jun Kim. My name is Dom. I am the co-defense counsel for Mr. Ieng Sari. I have no question for you at this stage. However, on behalf of Mr. Ieng Sari, I sincerely thank you for giving the testimony to this chamber in ascertaining the truth. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, says the President. The floor is now given to the defense team for Kiew Sampon. Can you inform the chamber how much time do you anticipate to take with this witness?
It will be quick, Mr. President. Very quick. Maybe 2 or 3 questions, not more. Well, in fact, I have a question that's more a question of curiosity, and I have a question regarding your joining the revolution, and I didn't understand that. I think there was a difference between what you said when this question was asked to you yesterday and the answer that you gave to us today. Yesterday, this is on page 22 and 23 of the non-reviewed version of the French transcript. I believe it's on page 20 of the English version here. And you were asked before you were allowed to join the party, were you obliged to undergo training? That was the question. Were you obliged to undergo a political training and training regarding the party line? And you answered to this, after the coup d'etat, the situation was chaotic. There were opportunists, and there were several nationalist groups. There were people who died. I did not join these groups because I was afraid. I thought that the revolutionary movement was not a bad thing, and I received training in this regard, and then later on the district people recruited me and made me join the CPK corrects interpreter as a member. And today you were asked by the civil parties to explain why you had decided to join the revolutionary movement and whether or not this was a willful decision. And you answered, as a peasant from Watanak commune, had I not joined the revolution, I might have been in danger one day. And in order to understand this issue of the revolution, I joined the revolutionary movement to protect myself and to protect the others. So, which of these 2 explanations is the one that we should retain? Or could you maybe give us clarification regarding these different answers between the answer you gave today and the answer you gave yesterday?
Answer. Regarding joining the revolution, and as I stated, it was after the coup d'etat of 17 April 1970. There was a movement before the Khmer Rouge movement. For example, at the Sambo commune, there was a movement by a group who claimed to revive the country. And people from Sambo were gathered to go to Kampong Thom to fight the Lunol group. Many of them died, and those who survived ran back home. I saw the situation and I decided not to join it because I could see the characteristic of this Wong Watana group, which was not worth to join. And later on, there was the Khmer Rouge revolutionary movement, and when they came to the villages, they invited us to join the study session, and later on at the Sambo commune. And when I went there, it was Mr. Chad who called me first. He did not give me much instructions. He gave me a few books and told me to read them. And after subsequent meetings, I was assigned as the commune chief of Watana. And when I joined the movement, because I decided that I would not know anything about the revolution if I were not to join. And if I join it, then I would know the depth of the movement and the revolution, so I can learn from it. And of course, I had to be very careful and vigilant. I can give you an example in this regard. In early 1978, the military took control of the Sambo district, and many of the commune chiefs were arrested except myself. And the reason was that the military and the authority at that time were in conflict. And of course, there were two military divisions around me, that is 920 and 801. They stationed in Ratnagiri and in the nearby location. And I knew the heads of the division, so I befriended with them and had communication with them to provide them with supply if needed. If they needed a boat or a cow or a buffalo, I would give it to them. So by the time they came to make the arrest, I was spared. And it means that I had to live based on actual situation and be flexible.
Thank you for this answer, witness. And I note that the example that you have just mentioned regards the year 1978. Can you remind the chamber when and in which year you joined the revolutionary movement?
Answer. I joined the movement in 1971.
So, thank you. In order to try to understand your answer properly, when you joined the revolutionary movement in 1971, were you obliged to do so? For reasons that you may explain to us, or was this a willful decision of yours back then in 1971?
Answer. I joined the revolutionary movement in 1971 as I thought that I would join in the development of the country. I always bear in mind the idea that the livelihood of the people should be improved. And during that decay regime, I was still thinking about the way to improve the livelihood of the people.
Fine. So, in order to be clear, in 1971, you were not forced to join the revolutionary movement. Is that clear? Is that so?
Answer. In 1971, the joining of the revolutionary movement was of my own free will. I was not compelled to do so.
Merci.
Thank you. And I will soon finish, but a few words on the conflict between the servicemen and the authorities that you were speaking about. This was in 1978. This is the example that you mentioned. Do you know the reason behind this conflict between the military and the government? And if you don't know the reason, okay, but if you do know the reason, can you please give us clarification on this?
Regarding the conflict between the military and the provincial authority, I could not know clearly, but one day I knew that one person by the name of Sawan, who was the logistic person at Division 920, he came to meet me at the Sambo commune. And he told me that he took a letter from Mr. San from Division 920 to hand it to me. In that letter, he requested 50 cows from me. I said that should be no problem. We will be able to afford to give it to you. But you need to share it with the district. And then I invited him to go to the district. And Mr. Sawan responded that no. That Mr. San instructed him to meet me only, and if I could not give them the cows, then he would go back. And as a result, I gave him 50 cows. So they came with 2 boats to pick up the cows, and then it was observed by the district, and I told them that I was giving the cows to the military, and then the district did not react. So I could conclude that the authority at the district and the provincial level was not that smooth with the military. Because it said that if I could not give them the cows, then they did not need to go to see the district or the province authority.
I have no further questions, Mr. President.
President. Thank you, Council, and thank you very much, Mr. Jun Kim. The hearing of your testimony has come to a conclusion. We really thank you very much for your valuable time to testify during this 2-day proceeding with patience and best effort. And this is part of your contribution in ascertaining the truth. You are now excused and you can return to your residence or wherever you wish to. We wish you a safe trip. Court officer, in coordination with visual unit, please assist the witness in his returning to his residence or anywhere you wish. We will continue to hear the reserved witness, that is TCW 321, after the adjournment. We will recess for 20 minutes and reconvene at 3:05.
សូមក្រោកឈរ